Hey Sound Shapers, welcome back to another episode. I am Nick Johnson, and today I'm going to be sharing a very useful tutorial for all you SP-404 MKII users and Pro Tools users. So have you ever wondered how to get your patterns from this beat maker into Pro Tools without fiddling with lining things up to the grid or having to name everything or even fooling with the SD card? Well, there's a very fast way to do this, and we're going to dive right in. So the way I'm able to do this is I downloaded the SP-404 MKII application. This is off the Roland's website. You can just basically hit download. This is no extra cost to SP-404 users, and as of, January 16, 2025. So this is a very useful tool for no cost, and I'll have that linked in the description for you so you guys can download that. This is what it looks like, and I want to be clear, this is not a plugin. So I don't open this application inside of Pro Tools. This is separate from Pro Tools. So I believe that's because they don't have the AAX format for this software. If you're using Pro Tools, no worries. You just keep this application open while Pro Tools is open as well. So first thing I see here is that it's connected. And the way I have this connected is through USB-C. So I just plug in a USB-C cable into the SP-404 and I plug that cable into my computer. That is all that is needed to do this process. I also encourage you guys to plug in some kind of monitoring. So what I mean by that is if you plug in to your headphone jack so you can hear the different patterns just to test out where you are, that's going to be useful as well. So be sure to plug in some headphones, or you can have it plugged in to the line out of your SP-404, and then plug that line out into your interface and then listen through your DAW. But it's much easier just to have a aux cord plugged in so I can hear the things that are coming from the SP-404, and then I can make sure I am exporting and carrying over these patterns the way that I want to. Now that we have the connectivity out of the way, let's go ahead and see how this process happens. So first thing I look at is we are on bank B. If we were on bank G, this light would be flashing. So since we're on bank B, I go to here on the screen and I can see that I'm in bank B and I'm at 108 BPM. I could also see that BPM up here at the top left corner of the SP-404. So we are looking at the samples at the moment. If we want the patterns to be viewed, we go here at the bottom left corner and click on patterns. We'll see our patterns right here. And so our first pattern sounds like this. And so that is a 4-bar loop. Every single pattern on here is a 4-bar loop. And so that's something I designated when I made the beat. And if you'd like to see this beat get made from scratch, I have a video to that as well. Go ahead and check that out. I'll have a link in the description to that. It's the first time that I plugged this piece of gear into the car stereo, and I was able to make this whole beat while sitting in the car in the mountains. So anyways, the very first thing, now that I have the patterns open and I can see which patterns I'm working with, I have designated my BPM. We want to make sure that same BPM is in Pro Tools. So 108 BPM. And now that will keep everything lined up and on the grid. So now we go back to the application. And now all we have to do to get these patterns into Pro Tools in stem format is click and drag into this black window. When I do that, you'll see exporting pattern as multipad. existing files will be overwritten. So when you see that overwritten, don't worry. It's not going to change any of your patterns inside the SP-404 or your pads, like your sample pads. The only thing that will be overwritten is if there were already files in this black window. One other important thing is, see how this says multipad mode. We want to make sure we are in multipad mode because that allows these files to be exported separately as stems. So we're going to hit OK, and it's going to start exporting. Each progress bar here, up to 100%, is for each individual pad that is in the pattern. So we use multiple pads, multiple samples to make up a pattern, and it's exporting each individual pad right now. So now that that's done, we have our stems up here in the black window. So we can select both of them, and all we have to do is click and drag those over into Pro Tools, and they appear right in Pro Tools. So we'll go ahead and take a listen. So there we go. Just as we heard it from the SP-404, it is now in Pro Tools, ready for us to mix and arrange, even chop up even more if we want to, but that is how the process is done to quickly get your patterns into Pro Tools. So now that we got that first pattern exported and loaded into Pro Tools, let's do one more. We'll go over to pattern 2. Sounds like this. Sounds like pianos and basses have been added. So if I'm hearing things correctly, we should now get 4 tracks in this window instead of 2. We'll overwrite those 2. There we go. It starts exporting. So this is much better than having to try and sync yourself up into Pro Tools and then record the pattern into Pro Tools live time and then line it up and then rename the track. All of that is done for you through this process. The only trade-off is you just wait a little bit longer to allow every single pad to export. But I would say that is much more worth it than the other alternative. So now that we have 4 tracks here, we'll grab those, we'll bring them into Pro Tools. And as you notice, there's some duplicate sounds here. And that is to be expected because each pattern still uses the same sounds as the previous. And that's all in how you structure your beat. If you want a sound to keep playing as you add more, you keep that sound in the pattern as you make a new pattern. So that's why we're seeing duplicates. And the way I make sure I stay organized is I put those duplicate sounds on their own tracks, like on the same tracks. So these strings, horns, and flutes, we want those to remain the same as we mix. So if we add like an effect to this track, we want that effect to remain on the sound as it plays. That's why I'm putting it on the same track. So there we go. We have 2 patterns into Pro Tools. Take a listen, turn off the click. Pattern 1 into pattern 2. So there we go. Let's go ahead and do another pattern. Pattern 3 sounds like this. So there we go. Let's go into our app here. Grab the 3rd pattern from bank B bring it in to the window, overwrite the previous files that were there, and it exports each individual one. So this is a really nice workflow that I've been experiencing. I feel like this SP-404 is completely like a sketch pad, right? If I want to get ideas down, I load some files up in here and I just get cooking. And when I get the patterns built and I get a sense of like what this beat is going to sound like, how the structure is going to be, I go ahead and designate that by making patterns. And now, once the patterns are made, we can bring those patterns straight into Pro Tools and basically fine tune the beat. We can mix, we can arrange, we can edit, can chop things. And so that will also be really nice once we are ready to record vocals onto this piece of music. All the files are going to be in Pro Tools and ready in stem format for us to record vocals on. So this looks like it's almost done. And it says success when it's done. So we have much more files here. We have 8 instead of 4. And so there we go. There's our new pattern that we brought into Pro Tools. Bring those up here. And then we'll move those over to where there's no more audio. And the reason why I do that is we can put our duplicates quickly on the same track, keeping things organized. And you can tell by the name, the look of the waveform, that you're bringing over a duplicate track. And bring these all up here. So now we're left with some empty tracks here. We can go ahead and select those and delete these to keep things clean. And there we go. We've downloaded another pattern into Pro Tools. Let's keep doing so. I'm going to bring all the patterns into Pro Tools. That way I can structure and I can arrange the beat the way I want. The next pattern sounds like we have a kick and snare. So we go into the app here, go to pattern 4, drag it up here, make sure it's in multi-pad mode, and we overwrite all the files that were there in this black window previously. That way we don't get duplicates of duplicates, if that makes sense. So, yep, very excited about this workflow. And even when this is loading, it gives me time to think about what I want to do. And once everything is in Pro Tools, it is just like a kid in a candy shop. I found that it's best to do these patterns one at a time, because if you bring them all in at the same time, all those duplicates get really hard to manage inside of the DAW. So if you just have a little more patience and you go one pattern at a time, and then you can keep them organized as you go, that will save you time and frustration in the long run. So there you go. This is the way to get patterns from your SP-404 into Pro Tools quickly and in an organized fashion. Just to remind you guys, once you bring a pattern in, bring those patterns up, or you bring those tracks up to the rest of them, you drag it over to where there's no more audio here, and then you basically get all these duplicate files to be on the same track. These 3 look the same as here. Indeed they are. And then there's our kick and snare. You can bring those up here. And then we get rid of the extra tracks. So there you have it. there's the full workflow. Please hit a like and subscribe if you have found this helpful, if you are excited to try this workflow out, if you have an SP-404. And we'll catch you next time on Sound Shapers. Stay inspired, y'all.